Okay.
We're live.
Where's Commissioner Bauman? All right. Good morning. It's Wednesday, March 20th, 2024. I will call the meeting to order. We have a full slate of commissioners, the county administrator, and clerk of the board. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of minutes. Is there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, first I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as currently
Second.
presented.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approval of minutes.
No objections.
No objections.
All right. Warrants and registers. We have
Mr.
two this morning.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Make sure I get these numbers right. I better get the bifocals on. I move for the approval in the amount of $979,008.16 for fund expenditures, and note that it has been signed off by two members of the auditor's office and our county administrator.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Mr.
Motion
Chairman,
passes.
I move for salary, payroll, and emergency management payroll in the amount of $1,218,419.07. And again, note that it has been signed off by two members of the auditor's office and the county administrator.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Public comment. Is there anyone in the room for public comment this morning? Is there anyone on the phone?
No.
Hearing none, moving on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of consent agenda items number 1 through 5 as presented.
I second with discussion on item 4.
I would also like discussion on item 3. So consent agenda item number 3, resolution 2024-074, the updated organizational chart in Franklin County Commissioner's Office. I am happy with the way that it is set up now. I believe the clerk of the board's job is a very unique position, and I feel that they should still work directly underneath the commissioners. Do I have any? Is there any other discussion on that from my fellow commissioners?
So just a question on that, what your thought that would look like is the clerk of the board would then answer directly to the chair and not to the county administrator, or what's your thought there? Just clarification.
So over the past few years, the clerk has basically reported directly to the 3 commissioners. And there were reasons why it was set up that way, but I am happy with that situation. I think it works. Because that position is so unique, and she does work, the clerk does work directly with the 3 commissioners, I just feel that it's best to leave it the way it is. I don't see any need to expand on the commissioner's office to put more responsibility on other parts of the commissioner's office. And that staff, I just believe that it has worked well in the past, and I'm in favor of continuing it that way.
So you would amend the org chart as presented to have the clerk be directly under the commissioners?
I would amend it to be the same result as what we have right now.
So we would put.
Yes, and that's what we currently have.
Okay. That's your proposal for amending it that way?
I don't have any problem with that.
So then we'll pull Resolution 2024-074 from the consent agenda. Commissioner Didier, you had
Yes.
discussion on number 4?
I just have discussion on number 4, and that is, reading through this, we were at a $200 fee, and if Mr. McGarry would please come forward. And it looks like we're going to have a reduction down to 125?
Yeah, because they're going to use our Randox machine. And so I talked to them about, they have access to the Randox machine, reduction of those prices. So that's what that is for.
Excellent. So it
And,
looks like we're working well with Benton County.
It's going okay. They're getting busier. They have more counties coming in. And so, you know, like last week, there was, I think, 9 in the cooler at one time. It's getting pretty tight. So, but it is. We've always had a good relationship. It's just you never know from one day to the next what you're going to have. So, but yeah, that's what that was. That's that reduction.
And in talking with the previous coroner, he actually used some of the funeral homes for storage capacity too. Is that correct?
That is correct,
Are we
and that's not
currently doing that?
available anymore. They're maxed out, and with accreditation, you can't use theirs because we're not accredited with them.
Okay.
Yeah, I've looked at the funeral homes, and they're maxed out. Yeah, they don't have room for us.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, a question for me, if it's okay with the chair. If I remember right, when you and I visited over there, that the funeral homes, because of their maxed out capacity, they have to use that facility occasionally because of their capacity issues. Is that
That's
accurate?
correct, yeah. They, sometimes they'll ask to use the coroner's office facilities because they're maxed out.
Yeah, I thought I remembered that. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you. So with that, I'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda items 1, 2, 4, and 5.
So, Mr. Chairman, I withdraw my former motion and make a new motion to approve consent agenda items 1, 2, 4, and 5, pulling item number 3.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Resolutions pass. Moving on to regular business, Mr. Gonzalez, County Administrator.
Thank you, Chair. So this item comes before us to sign the interlocal agreement between Franklin, Benton counties, Pasco, Richland, and Kennewick. This is in regard to the microwave system upgrades for our emergency services radios. So this past month, IS gave us a snapshot of why that issue is so important, and just for the public's knowledge, some context here. So Franklin County's over there microwave transport system is really the backbone for emergency radio communications. The existing combined microwave network in Franklin and Benton counties is on the brink of failure and is based on really antiquated technology. So the system is in continual need of repair, becoming exceptionally difficult to find parts and maintain operations. At times, we're having to find parts on eBay, which is really problematic, and the parts are at times not even available anymore. So if a significant failure were to occur in either data ring, it would cripple the public safety radio system, prevent communication with a direct impact on first responders, and the delivery to the Tri-Cities. So this upgrade is paramount and really the foundation of the pending radio system. So this morning we have with us Jay Atwood, Director of the Benton County Emergency Management, and Drew Florence, Assistant City Manager with Richland, who you've all met with and given us some really good information. So they're here to answer any questions, commissioners, you may have. If you don't, gentlemen, if you want to come forward just in case the commissioners have any questions, and appreciate you being here.
Good morning.
Please have a seat. Thank you. I think we're going to be here a while.
I guess,
I'll leave it to the commissioners.
right.
You've informed me really well. So.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much up to date on it. For the general public, though,
Yes.
let's get the short version
Sure.
and cost.
Sure. So the reason that we're bringing the amended ILA forward today, the existing ILA that governs the operation of Benton County Emergency Services, and more importantly for Franklin County, CCOM, which is Southeast Communications. That's the dispatch center that handles all the fire, EMS, law enforcement, and 911 processing for both counties. That existing agreement doesn't speak to the procurement and ownership of newly acquired capital. So the existing ILA only speaks to maintenance and operation of the equipment that's currently in service. And of course, it indicates in that document that what both counties brought to the table, both counties continue to own moving forward. So this amendment to the ILA allows us to do several things. The most critical piece of this is that it allows us to have a vehicle for procurement of major capital and depicts in the ILA how the ownership of that capital is divided. A couple of the other pieces that are critical in this amendment include the allowance of proxy voting. So there are times where trying to get a full quorum together is difficult, so being able to do proxy voting either by email or some other means is being added to this document. As far as procurement of capital goes, it's speaking specifically to the purchase of the upgraded microwave system that we're looking at. It was the board's desire moving forward that any time that we would make a major capital purchase, that we would revisit the ILA and address that capital purchase and ownership and all of those different components as we, approach those different projects. So this amendment is speaking specifically to the microwave project itself for the procurement and the ownership. And then it also allows for Benton County Public Utilities District was a voting member of the board. They have withdrawn as they no longer have interest in utilizing the systems that we have. They just want to continue forward being a user. And then, what was the last one? Oh, yeah, oh, that's right. And then this also depicts, how the costs will be shared for this purchase of the microwave system.
And what is the time constraints?
So the conversation about replacing the microwave system began, it's been at least 2 years. I've been here for a year and a half. I know that conversation had begun before my arrival here. It picked up steam this last summer. We got our official quote from Motorola. That contract and quote was guaranteed for 90 days. And as we worked with BCS board to try to get approval for moving forward with that contract, various obstacles came up to include the recognition of we don't really have a mechanism in place that addresses the procurement of capital and the cost sharing and the ownership piece of that. So that started us down a path to where we are today. That Motorola contract guarantee has been extended 3 times. This last extension that they gave us, which will end at the end of March, so March 31st, if we don't have the ILA signed, which then enables us to sign and execute that contract, then Motorola won't have a choice but to pull that contract back, reevaluate, and look at cost, and high potential for that cost to go up approximately 15 to 20%. That's a significant amount when you look at the total contract price of $6.5 million as it stands today. The other piece of this is that we received a $2 million CDS grant from the federal government from fiscal year '23. That $2 million is dedicated to equipment expenditure as part of this project, and is benefit at both counties are a benefactor of that grant. We are in jeopardy of potentially losing that money as well, because the intent with those CDS funds is that as soon as you receive those funds, that you expend the funds. Because of the delays with the ILA and various other aspects, we haven't been able to expend that money. So we received word from various congressional members, aides, that if we don't get this money spent, we're in jeopardy of losing that money as well, in a sweep to help potentially aid with threats of government shutdown, et cetera.
All right. Fellow commissioners, are there any questions?
So just to clarify, ILA is interlocal agreement for
Yes, sir.
everybody out there listening.
I apologize, I shouldn't have used the acronyms.
Well, no, it speeds up the process, but I just want to make sure everybody knows what we're talking about. This 6.5 million, this ILA of 6.5 million is not for new apparatus, is it? Or is it's just to keep our apparatus running?
So the ILA is just the governance document for Benton County Emergency Services operations for the procurement and ownership of equipment, said equipment that we're gonna buy in the contract. The $6.5 million is in a contract with Motorola that we would execute to procure the new gear. It is all new equipment.
It is new equipment.
Yep, 100% new
And-
equipment for
is this-
both Benton and Franklin County.
Are these handheld radios or are
No,
these-
this
Yeah,
is
This
for
is
the-
what I'm trying to clarify, what this equipment is.
You bet. So, what this is, Commissioner, is this is the equipment that resides on the mountaintops.
Right.
So that it is a transport mechanism for radio communications. So if I'm standing on the ground here today and I want to talk to somebody on the far west end of Benton County, I have my portable radio, I key the mic. That transmission then goes to the closest mountaintop. Once on the mountaintop, that microwave system then transports that signal to the other mountaintops in the region, and then allows whoever it is I'm trying to talk to on the other end, receive that signal then from the closest mountaintop that
Which
they're
is,
standing next
is
to.
response time for a need of help.
Yeah, absolutely. It's critical.
Ambulance, police, and firefighters all need this in order to get backup when they need it to resolve the problem they're
Absolutely.
facing.
And not only that, if that system, any part of the system were to fail, then it would also hamper our ability to send emergency services to people that call 911 for help.
So this affects our sheriff's office too.
Every aspect of public safety, law enforcement, fire, EMS, et
All
cetera.
right, and you're talking our portion of this is how much money?
So the way that with the way the agreement was laid out, the delta of that 6.5 million, assuming we can spend that 2 million, is $4.5 million. That's
Right.
including sales tax. So that cost would be divided evenly amongst the agreed upon 5 owners. The 5 owners include City of Richland, City of Kennewick, City of Pasco, Benton County, and Franklin County. Franklin County's share of that 4.5 million, as it stands today, would be about $904,000. Another factor in this is that we have been applying for money to help offset the cost of this in every avenue that we can. We were told that we've been awarded $237,000, excuse me, via state appropriations. As long as the governor does not veto that award, then that money will come and help offset the cost and basically will reduce the share for all of the partners by about $47,000.
Minus 47 off of 904.
So roughly, $855,000 or so would be the sum total for each of the owner agencies.
And this question is not intended for you, but Mr. Gonzalez, have we exhausted all of our funds? Is there any funds that are available that we could utilize to purchase this new equipment?
At this point, Commissioner, we exhausted the final amounts with, when we gave it to the coroner's office, so that was the
Yeah,
final.
but are there any other funds, like, I know we have these other funds that we have, can we utilize any of those?
So
other
what
funds?
we're looking into right now is the REIT funds to see, and that's the real estate excise tax. So I actually got it on my list of things to do today to talk to Tim Anderson to see if that could fit into that bucket. A lot of those funds are earmarked for like economic development. I don't know if that would necessarily fit into this bucket. .09 funds are pretty focused on economic development as well. So I know the new emergency 911 sales tax could support that, but like Jay and I and Drew talked, it's going to take a year for that funding mechanism to kick in. So I know Jason Valentine is also working with the jurisdictions on trying to secure some more money. The round of money that's coming up is what they call CEDS. It's the Congressional Directed Spending. So we actually have a meeting with 4 congressional delegations today over at BFCOG, and that's going to be one of the big asks to see if they can kick in some funding. So we're definitely turning over every rock, but I would say right now our ARPA funding has been exhausted, and that, as we all know, that had to be allocated by the end of this year. So that's all teed up, but those funds are exhausted. So other than that, we are looking pretty hard though.
And what happens if we don't come up with our funding, but everybody else does?
Yeah, so and just to point of clarity, the contract is broken down or will be broken down into 3 installments. The $2 million CDS funds that are coming from the federal government are going to satisfy the first,
Wave.
payment, yeah, and for all 5 jurisdictions. The second disbursement wouldn't be required until probably early first quarter to mid 2025. And that is a larger chunk of the $900,000, just over $450,000, maybe a little more. And then the third disbursement wouldn't be required until probably 26. And those are all based upon benchmarks within the contract that Motorola has to fulfill in order for the next payment to be required. So as far as funding mechanisms go, you do have a little bit of time. The signing of the ILA, again, to piggyback on what Jay said, there is a provision in the ILA that says that if there is a non-payment, that then a discussion would occur between the 5 agencies about whether or not to continue to provide services to the jurisdiction that can't make the payment. That obviously contracts, interlocal agreements, there's typically a clause like that in any one of those contracts when it comes to money. I know that the region is committed to providing by-county emergency services, so I think that would probably generate a lot of discussion. But as it comes to these disbursements, the city of Richland, as a result of how we're going to be able to bill this, is ultimately going to make the payments to Motorola, and then we will turn around and invoice each jurisdiction within 30 days to collect their portion for whatever disbursement we're referring to. So we are going to be attending the BFCOG meeting or a portion of it today. Our intention is to talk about CDS funds for the next radio project, which we're calling Project 2, which is the VHF to 800 megahertz system that is not addressed in this ILA. I don't know that we're going to have a lot of success trying to find money for this project, considering we already got $2 million from the same source with the federal government. I think that if we try to say, hey, we'd like more money, they're going to say, you haven't even spent the money we've given you. So the urgency is really in the increase that we're going to see regionally and to Franklin County, which is the 15 to 20% of the 2.5 or 6.5 million and the potential loss of that 2 million. We're roughly at about $3 to $3.5 million increase in this contract from a cost perspective to each jurisdiction, split 5 ways. So it's one of those things where we've kicked, and I say we, I mean the region has kicked this down kicked the can down the road for several years. And as a result, we're up against a deadline because of equipment failure, because of the grant funding we've received, and because we now have board members on the BCS board who recognize kind of the urgency of it. We're trying to push through and get this done so that we don't have a colossal failure in the radio system and have to explain, to the public why we can't dispatch emergency services. So,
Thank you.
So a question about Benton PUD no longer wanting to be a party to this. So I thought I heard you say that they still want to use the service, they just don't want to be a party to it. Describe what that would look like if they would just be paying for access to the system?
yeah, so they're going to move from being an owner of the microwave system, or a partial owner, to a subscriber. When they originally were an original owner of this system, they used it as a primary communication mechanism. They have several other systems now, and for lack of better terms, our system is the backup to their backup. So they're willing to continue to be partners, and they will continue to have ownership in the existing microwave system. As that fades out and becomes not being used, that ownership will go away. But anything acquired from a new capital position, they will be subscribers, and they'll have to pay just like other subscribers if they want to have access.
So what is their primary and their secondary systems
I'll have
today?
to defer to Jay on that one.
So they have since developed a fiber network, so they're utilizing that as a primary. I think secondary, they're using some other form of wireless connection between, their data points. And then this is, like, as Drew said, truly like the backup to the backup to the backup at this point, utilizing the circuits for the microwave
So, but
system.
fiber you can't use in a radio capacity. Radio, depicts a wireless connection, and fiber can't do that.
So the fiber connection that they have has nothing to do with the mountaintop. So that's, like I said, totally separate from the system that we have. If fiber was available for us, what would happen is we would have fiber connections to the mountaintops back to the hub. So there's always going to be some form of connectivity that you need, whether it's by a hard line or line of sight, as in what this system is, which is microwave. So obviously, given the geography and the difficulty of running fiber networks to mountaintops, this is the transport mechanism that's the most effective.
I was just wondering why that they feel like that they have an adequate system, leaving what we're saying is a crucial thing. Why are they saying this really isn't necessary for us? We'll stick around just because it's a third option. but-
Correct. Yeah.
I think their needs are different than emergency.
Sure.
I think that if their communications go down, it certainly has an impact. And I'll preface this by saying I don't know their business, but
I appreciate that, yeah.
I do know emergency communication. I was a police officer for 17 years in this area, for 10 of that, and I think the needs are very different from what they have, and the dependency on that communication tool. Our cops, our firefighters, our EMS folks, could they communicate via cell phone? Yes. Would it absolutely impair their ability to do their job? Without a doubt. And so I think the expectation of the public is different, and I think that their business need is different. And I think that's what it comes down to as far as their need to pull out, because before it was something they were dependent on, and they're just not anymore.
Yeah, I'm trying to learn and understand. There was a time, it's been years ago, but where Nextel phones were the rage, right? Because it was a walkie-talkie two-way radio as well as a cell phone, and it just trying to figure out and understand, how this process, because I can understand there's shadows, in areas where that cell phones don't work and Nextels did not work. Just trying to learn and understand why they would be going away from it. So, no more questions, Mr. Chair.
All right, any other questions, Commissioner Didier?
So today, all you're asking for is to sign the interlocal agreement, which is a commitment by us to pay you $855,000, of which $450,000 by mid-year next year?
So the ILA will address the ownership of future capital acquisition related to this microwave. Any other capital acquisition will come back before every jurisdiction and the ILA will be open. But yes, we are authorizing, the ILA allows us to then go and procure capital. So what happens after this is presuming that every jurisdiction signs the ILA, which should be happening last week, this week, and next week. And we have, as we understand it, commitments from the jurisdictions to do that. Then on March 28th, the Benton County Emergency Services Board, which is made up of the executives from Franklin County, Mr. Gonzalez, the city managers of Pasco, Kennewick, and Richland, and a county commissioner from Benton County, and then there's some representation for the fire districts. Prosser and West Richland, thank you. They will vote to approve or not approve the Motorola contract, which then will identify the specific funding amounts, disbursements, deliverables that you would be required to pay in the future. So it's kind of a chicken and egg situation where we can't do one without the other. But as far as the interlocal agreement, it will not have the financial figures in it because that's contained within the contract. But it does say that you're committing to 1/5 ownership of the acquisition of the microwave, which is detailed in the contract.
So I know you mentioned it earlier, the five partners are Franklin County, Benton County, City of Pasco, City of Richland, and
City of Kennewick.
City of Kennewick. Okay. So how does Prosser pay into this, or are they on the system?
So Prosser and West Richland both are just subscribers to the system. So their primary use is maintenance and operation for both the, components of the radio system and then, of course, the existing microwave.
And they have a different, it's a different voting structure in that the 5-member agencies have
Two votes
two
each.
votes each. So every one of their votes is worth 2, and Prosser and West Richland's votes are worth 1. And going forward, they will actually not have votes when it comes to maintenance and operation or capital acquisition related to anything that is purchased by the big 5, so to speak. The interlocal is perhaps like an interlocal I've never seen because there's so many moving parts and bringing emergency communications from 2 counties that had existing systems together. It really depends on what is being discussed and voted on at the board level. And there's really intentional dialogue up front saying, this is who's eligible to vote on this item because you're the only ones that have any ownership in this. And so it's divided to make sure that only those jurisdictions that have the authority to vote on an item are actually voting on it. So it's not uncommon for there to be 6 different votes on 6 different topics with different participants at every board meeting. It's to be frank, kind of a mess, but it's something we hope to resolve as we move towards independence of the emergency communications operating as its own jurisdiction in the future, so.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Commissioner Bauman.
So in relationship to the 5 signatories needed for this ILA, I know that I was at the city council meeting on Monday night and they took action. Of the remaining 4, where's that with them?
Yeah, so a point of clarity, the ILA actually requires all members to sign it. So that includes Prosser and West Richland, and the fire districts and such, their representation. And I couldn't tell you definitively how that works. But the ILA is written so that anytime it's opened, all of the jurisdictions who are identified as members in one way or shape or form, and members different than owner, have to sign to authorize the ILA. What will happen on the vote to acquire capital at the March 28th BCS board meeting is only the 5 agencies, Franklin County, Benton County, and the 3 cities will vote on that because they will be the owners. I couldn't tell you specifically because everybody has different meeting dates. I know last night the city of Richland approved the ILA. I'm pretty sure.
Kennewick's was on the docket last night. I haven't heard if that passed. We received Prosser's, theirs passed last week. I'm not sure about West Richland, or
So
Pasco.
the broader ILA has 12 signatories?
11 now that Benton PUD is not
Has
gonna be
removed.
there.
Okay.
I can tell you, when we had the last BCS board meeting, we had representation from all members there and all demonstrated a commitment to have it before their legislative bodies and ideally approved before March 28th, pending any issues.
Yeah, we're under a time crunch here. It's got to be done by March 28th, and more importantly, as Franklin County, we got to figure out where we're going to get the funds from. And that's why I've been calling for budget meetings, and 1 year, I'm hoping that we can get these scheduled up. I've been asking Mr. Gonzalez at my agenda meeting to start these immediately. I would like to start doing the 1 year budget plan because we have to figure out where we're going to get these funds.
So I do believe that that started yesterday, if I understand right. Is that correct, Mr. Chairman? As far as the budget meeting started yesterday? Or is that
We had a
different?
budget meeting yesterday, yes, that is correct, but I believe the workshop is separate.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
Yeah, we gotta be able to call the meeting to order and have a quorum because we can't talk unless we're in an
Yeah.
open public meeting, so.
Mr.
believe
Chairman,
the
I move
general
for,
Consensus is that we do start the budget workshops so that we can communicate with each other in open.
And that's something I've talked to Tim Anderson a little bit about, so we could start it as early as next Wednesday, so, and at least get the ball rolling, and, because I think Consor gave us a pretty good idea with the roadmap and just kind of executing that, and I've been working pretty hard on a lot of those suggestions, and, at least getting ourselves set up in the right position so we can make some moves, and so I feel good about some of the things that Consor told us that can be impactful right away. So, and these are some things that we can share during the budget hearings. They're not hearings, but more workshops and kind of ideas. So, and again, Tim was on my radar to speak to. I was talking to him yesterday about some HAPO issues, so they'll see me again today.
Mr. Chair, I move for approval of Resolution 2024-073, interlocal agreement for Benton County Emergency Services.
I have a
second.
motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Moving on to Commissioner Administrator updates. Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Chair. Been working pretty hard with the City of Pasco and the HAPO Center issues and Larry Leisure and HWL. As a lot of folks in the public know, our official contract with the City of Pasco comes to an end basically May 1st. So we've been having some really good conversations about the future of the HAPO Center, how that could be run, and Chair, we've gone over there and talked to them, and so I feel like those conversations are moving in the right direction. Been working closely with HWL on the RFP for the HVAC, so that a lot of the vendors have been reaching out, so that'll be coming out relatively soon. Also, the horse stalls, that's another thing that will be coming via RFP pretty soon. So all those things are coming to fruition that some of the vendors have been asking me about. Internally, just working hard with staff and everyone, and every day is extremely busy, and just to move the county forward. So I know I'm working hard on behalf of the citizens. So that's all I've got.
Thank you. Commissioner Bauman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Had been Franklin Transit Board meeting last week. A lot of public comment continues about the contract that the staff is working on in relationship to VIA to be able to backfill some of the ride requests for the dial-a-ride service, that the dial-a-ride service is having trouble with staffing to keep that filled. So staff is working on that. And then there was a presentation by VIA, and really appreciated the presentation. They give an extensive presentation. VIA is actually a very large company that operates not only U.S.-wide but worldwide in other countries as well. And they talked about some of their onboarding processes, some of their requirements, and they have a little bit different business model. The VIA drivers are not necessarily employees. I suppose you could describe it a little bit more like an Uber type contract, but really appreciated some of the stats that they shared. Their accident rating is significantly less as a whole than some of their peer organizations, and some of the other ridership models that they work with, and so really appreciated they have about 25% of their vehicles are ADA compliant, and that's significantly more than their ADA ridership, which is significantly less than that. They've given, Mr. Didier, if I remember right, they said over 300,000 rides since they've
600,000.
It's-
They gave 300,000, but 6,000 rides to
ADA.
ADA.
Yeah.
And that's
So-
that's a 3-year span.
3-year span, yeah. So really appreciated all the statistics that they brought, because over the last several board meetings, there's been a significant amount of public comment and concern about the different things. There's been really some very there was some misnomers as far as whether or not the VIA drivers had to go through a drug screen and background test check, those different kind of things. And so as they did their presentation with the Cliff Notes attached, really appreciated it. A lot of the concerns that I had written down as they went through their presentation one at a time, I started scratching off the questions that I had until the end. I didn't have any questions left in regards to some of the specific stuff I had written down, so I really appreciated that. Did a site visit and had discussion with our county public works director and engineer about the canal break that happened out in the county a little while ago. Really appreciate the careful coordination that Mr. Erdman has had with the irrigation district and related to that, and the citizens in the county. We're all familiar with Rascal Rodeo. They had their yearly benefit auction on Friday night out at the Benton Franklin Fairgrounds. Really enjoyed going there and seeing what that organization is doing on behalf of some of those that are of special needs in our community. Agenda meeting with staff, WASAC meeting, and the WASAC meeting was primarily about the opioid settlement monies that have come and others that will be coming. And then on Monday night, City of Pasco Council meeting, where they did address and pass this interlocal agreement that we just took action on. So that's my report. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Didier.
Yes, I agree, everything what Commissioner Baumann said about the VIA. One thing I want to really make clear to the public right now, that we are not getting rid of DAR, Dial-A-Ride. DAR is going, it's there. It's going to stay there with Ben Franklin Transit. There's been a false premise put out there that we're eliminating DAR in favor of VIA. This is an untruth. What it is VIA is only those 300,000 rides and those 6,000 rides over a 3-year period. That's only due to a failure of DAR to provide those rides, because we had testimony from the DAR drivers that they were being overworked, their overtime. They were being overworked when we had 20 to 30 of them every month not showing up to work, be it they're sick or whatever. They were not showing up for work, and we were not completing the task of moving the people in the Tri-Cities to their doctor's appointments, they have dialysis, they have all these appointments that they had to make, and they were showing up late and therefore rejected. They weren't even able to get their treatments or whatever they were going for, a doctor's appointment or whatever. They were not getting their treatments. So we as a board and our head person over there, Rochelle, decided that we were going to supplement VIA to make sure these people got to where they needed to go on time, and it accomplished it. And we are now providing the service that we told the people of the Tri-Cities we were going to do with VIA. And miraculously, the first month of this year, everybody showed up for work at Ben Franklin Transit, which is good, but we're still utilizing VIA. We need to make sure that we get the people moved to their appointments on time. And DAR is not being eliminated. I just want to keep saying that over and over again, because their whole premise is that they've told these people that are showing up to our meeting is that we're cutting the Dial-A-Ride out of the budget. No, we're making sure that people are getting moved to where they need to go on time. and that we're not overworking these people that were complaining at the mic. It was a very good meeting, and VIA did a great presentation. And I apologize for the treatment that they got from the employees and from the guy that sits next to me at the board. If you want to listen to some interesting meetings, tune into the Ben Franklin Transit. They're getting more interesting as time goes on. And I think Mr. Bauman wanted to add to this.
I do. I really appreciated the meeting, and it was really interesting and telling, I think. I asked the chair of the meeting to have somebody escorted from the room because of the consistent heckling that happens from the crowd. And really unfortunate to see that. And, there's been a misnomer out there that VIA is basically a reckless and careless organization, and that is not the case whatsoever. They gave statistics, including the minute and the second. On average, there are more than 300,000 rides of what their response times. And if I remember right, it was just short of 15 minutes from the time the call came in until the ride arrived on the scene. And so, that's a spectacular statistic to get a call and then to provide the ridership in that time. I have asked numerous times, and has been reiterated to me, that in no case will a VIA driver or ride take precedent over Dial-A-Ride. And I agree that it's disappointing that there's people that are attempting to put the premise out there that we are trying to replace Dial-A-Ride. That is not the case in any way, shape, or form. It is a way to supplement a need and provide the service that we are statutorily required to provide. And so, appreciated that meeting, and disappointing. One of the board members in the way that tries to steer things constantly to provide a negative view of it. And thankful for the result that we have, and really appreciate Rochelle Glazer's leadership of the Ben Franklin Transit. I think she's doing a spectacular job, and thankful for her leadership.
Yes, Rochelle Glazer is our general manager. She's been on for, I think, a year and a half now, and has done an incredible job. And she's making sure the people of this community, Benton and Franklin County, are being moved efficiently and effectively. So my hat's off to her. She's doing a wonderful job. Ben Franklin Council of Governments, Mr. Gonzalez attended that meeting with me. Very good meeting. We pointed out that these small fixes that are being proposed in Richland, and they're not small in any degree, by the millions of dollars that they were going to spend for these fixes, where we should be looking at putting a new bridge across the Columbia that was predicted it was going to cost $500 million, which it probably will, or more. But that would alleviate all of the traffic up George Washington Way and the bypass highway in Richland, because when you start taking this growth of population we have in Franklin County and you give them another avenue over to Richland, from Self Landing to Horn Rapids, you have alleviated all of that traffic. So we take all the small fixes that they're proposing and you put it into one big fix, and you fixed everything, and then you create this bypass highway all the way around the cities. And Benton County's already got theirs in place. We need to get ours in place around Franklin County and make a bypass highway around the city so you have entrance and exit anywhere you want. That's what we're proposing at that meeting, and it was a very good suggestion, well taken by everybody on the board, but the person in Richland sort of took offense to it because he wants the money and he's retiring.
Yeah.
So then we had our agenda meeting, and then I had a call from a constituent. He has got a family and he's wanting to put in a swimming pool, and he was told, and he called me and he was very angry that since he wants to put in this swimming pool, he's got to put a paved approach off of a roadway that's not an all-weather roadway. And this is going to cost him another $10,000. And for the likes of me, I don't know why we're doing this to our people. This is a swimming pool that's out on his ground that doesn't have another house within a mile. And yet he's got to do the same security around that pool that you would have to do in town. It just doesn't make sense. And to make him pay for a paved approach off of a roadway that's not an all-weather roadway is a travesty. That's something we need to stop. Any improvement of $25,000, you got to put a paved approach. And even if you don't live on a paved road that's not an all-weather roadway, you got to have an approach permit. This is very upsetting because we've got people out there wanting to do improvements on their property, and this is what we're getting handed to them. And the people are upset, and they're getting more upset as time goes on. So we really need to look at that paved approach, and I suggest that we get rid of it for out there, unless it's an all-weather roadway, which has already got the widened shoulders, and yes, it makes sense then, but otherwise, if that roadway becomes a paved roadway, that approach is going to be tore up to make it an all-weather roadway.
And Commissioner, I have been talking with Craig Erdman about, I know the price was a real issue for people with that paved approach, so we've altered some of the amounts and made it not so expensive. So that's the first step. But I know you've got your code enforcement group, and maybe this is an agenda item we can address, and maybe the best alternative is to get rid of it, because it seems like every time it comes up, people are pretty ticked off. So I'll definitely reach out to Derek today and Craig and see.
Yeah, right now I've had probably half a dozen people calling me, and I got more people that aren't even aware that it's going to hit them on the improvements they're going to do either at their house or on their property.
All right, thank you. And on that note, with the bypass highway, it would also alleviate a lot of the traffic that comes through the Tri-Cities that maybe hauling hazardous materials. And I think that's a public safety concern if you realize how much stuff comes through here, through town. So last week I had the elected and department head meeting. Of course, the chair meeting with Mr. Gonzalez and Jason. Had the budget review meetings yesterday, and I believe that the budget workshops is a most definite need to where we can sit down and have discussions with all three commissioners. It's extremely hard to do business when you can't talk to your fellow commissioners except for an open meeting. So this would allow it to be open to the public and would give us an opportunity to brainstorm and try to come up with different ideas. So that is it. We'll move on to administration business.
And Chair, on the topic of budget workshops, would the group be interested in workshops outside the Wednesday meeting in addition? Because what I think we've all found when we have workshops within regular business days, sometimes they have a tendency to get long. With that being said, that's our job, but at the same time, to stay focused, and sometimes I've found in workshops it's easier to stay focused when you have one topic. And sometimes that's easier maybe on a Tuesday or Thursday outside the meeting. So if you guys are interested, I will work with the auditor's office and stakeholders, from across the courthouse to get them on that agenda. But it'll have to be noticed like anything else. But because I think it's going to take a lot of hard work and, several hours to look at, various components. But I'm ready to dig in, and I think we've already been digging in with the consort study, but this kind of seems like the logical next step to get everyone in the courthouse really engaged. But if you're open to it, I can research that and see how everybody's schedules are looking.
Comments?
So I really liked Commissioner Didier's thought is that after a regular Wednesday commissioners meeting to adjourn 10, 15 minutes, whatever, and then reconvene into a workshop meeting. We'd have to ask, I don't think we would have to, I think we could go in no matter what time we went out of this meeting. But I don't think it has to be a time because there's not a public comment component, but I don't know, we'd have to ask.
And Daniel Stovern's here and Sean Sant. From a noticing perspective, would we have to give a definite time to the workshop once the meeting broke? Okay. With that being said, could you attach it to the regular agenda as an additional, we adjourn once the meeting breaks, and then Because it would be easier to attach it to the same agenda.
Convene straight into a workshop meeting? Could we do it in that fashion?
You're putting it basically on the agenda. On the foot of.
Right, yeah, that's what I thought was my thought.
When they would show up.
Right,
And,
okay,
and if we have a really long meeting, we make the announcement, because if they're listening for it, that we will not have any agenda or a budget meeting that day, but like today, we're gonna finish within an hour.
Right.
So it'd be a great day. We're here, and we didn't get dressed up for nothing, and we can go right into the budget meeting.
agreed.
That would be my suggestion is, and Commissioner
works
Didier
best for
had
me.
that suggestion, and it would allow us to continue on to do business.
Okay, sounds good. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you. Oh, you got it. Thank you, sir.
So, Mr. Gonzalez, you have an update on the 1310 building?
Yes, I've got Liz Couples here and Jennifer Wagner's also here. Just wanted to give the body a quick update because there's been some infrastructure put in terms of the computer network and some signage that's on the way and whatever other updates they may want to share. So it's one of these things that's kind of lingered because of a few things, but wanted to give the public and the commissioners an update. And really the public an update just so they know what's going on too. So ladies, if you can come up, I'd appreciate it.
Morning.
Good morning.
So we have carpet that is to be installed next week, and then
Grab a mic.
I always talk too loud, so.
You got to do it so the public can hear.
So we have carpet that is to be installed next week, and then that will have the coroner to be able to go into his side of the building. As the county administrator had said, we do have signage that is going to go on the corner of the southeast building, side of the building. Once we actually establish who is going to the other side of the office portion, we'll get all of the signage for that building. So there's additional 4 other signs that we need to order, and I just don't want to do that until we're in a permanent state. So,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
what was wrong with the carpet that was in there?
after some of the walls were removed, the aquarium that was in the lobby was removed. There are large spaces in the current carpet, and also there was some rolling. And so once all of that was done, the work was done, you know, it was kind of, well, we don't have any other choice but to replace the carpet. And that was just down from the front door to the back door, not in any of the smaller office portions. So it was just what was needed to be done was done.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? No?
I guess I do have one. Did they get I think it was Franklin County was bringing fiber to the building?
That would be Liz Couples to go ahead and, so I'll leave it over to her.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So yeah, Paramount has brought fiber into the facility. Now that fiber does need to get terminated, we expect, I'm hoping it'll get terminated this week. Benton PUD will have to come back in, configure their equipment, and then our network will be connected from Franklin County campus out to that facility.
Franklin PUD.
Franklin PUD. Did I say Benton PUD?
It's fine.
I do that all the
I
time.
knew what
'cause
you meant.
I grew up in Benton County, so everything to me is Benton County, but I've
Welcome to
worked here for
Franklin County.
24 years, right? So-
It's easy to do.
So anyway, yeah, so the fiber's in, just waiting for some cross connects to finish up, and then we'll have a live network over there. Intrusion detection and card readers have been installed. Just waiting for the network to finish getting installed so that it all communicates. We're gonna be putting in some cameras over there, exterior cameras, and we'll determine if we need interior cameras, but we'll be working with the departments to finish that all out. The north side, which is the corner side, it's complete with networking cables, just waiting for our cross connect back to the county to get implemented, and then we can get the coroner's office completed. Other than that, that's about it. Any questions?
Questions? Thank you.
Yep, no problem, thank you.
A question for Mr. Gonzalez. What is the plans for the space where the coroner currently occupies?
So that's something we've been talking about, is to possibly move Jason Valentine into that space, and almost set like up a media area where we can conduct interviews and maybe even do some podcasting. So I've got some visions to be able to talk with elected officials and educate the public more on, what each area does. So that was one thought. Another thought, which didn't go over too positively with OPD, but I thought we could move some of their personnel in there, but it didn't seem like it was the right fit for them. There's other individuals around the courthouse that are interested. You could do some things. You could put some partitions in there because it is a pretty large space. So right now it can be utilized. We just have to figure out the right fit and who's willing and able to go in there. But so there is some toggling. One thing I wanted to get while we're speaking about offices, the law library is up and running, and we had our first guest yesterday. So that was good to see. The computer system is in there and it's good to go. So we had a visitor. So the timing was just kind of good on that. And but we'll definitely be utilizing it. But my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Curtis is going to be out there out of that office within about a month and a half is the game plan. Franklin PED, yes. Yeah, so. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, is there anyone in the room for public comment?
Hello, Commissioners. Glenn Stockwell. I thought I'd give you an update. I was with the Grant County Commissioners yesterday. I was asking them if they would participate with a meeting with President Trump, and I'm waiting for their response. It's supposed to be coming shortly. I have the handout here that I handed out. I'd like to also leave this newspaper with you, and it's talking about Mary Dye and the water right bill that's been signed into law, which is a big step forward for the project. And so anyway, I just thought I'd come down and give you an update as to what I've done with the Grant County Commissioners. So anyway. You have any questions?
It's a public comment, so there's no conversation between speakers. So, anyone else for public comment? Do we have anyone on the phone? Yes. We have a caller?
Beginning to end.
Caller, you have 3 minutes.
Hi. You know, when I told Jim Raymond to sit down and shut up, it was because he keeps speaking during public comments, but he's an elected sheriff in uniform. But anyway, he also says that he guarantees that his officers would take every report. But we have contradictory evidence now that he hasn't taken every report. And he won't address that. The report of assault was made by a female and a male representative, me and my ex-wife. And that report was taken by a deputy, but it was never forwarded to the state police like it was supposed to. Because that's what they do. When he was accused in November of 2019 of assaulting his daughter-in-law, that's what happened. It went to the state police. Because that's the protocol. But that protocol wasn't followed. There are many, many crimes, including dead prisoners, that I know of, people that have been held, tortured, See, if you learn something about the cells, the temporary holding cells in that jail, they can shut the water off to each one. So when they put you in there and lock you in there, they just turn the water off. And they'll hold you there for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days. Imagine that to a homeless person who's already slightly dehydrated or maybe has a drug problem. They're dead. That's why they die there. In November 2006, Saddam Hussein was found guilty of crimes against humanity, documented by several human rights organizations. He was convicted in November 2006, and put to death December 30th, 2006. We can end our problems. These are crimes against humanity. This is not a threat. If you fear something, you should address your own behavior. See, I asked Jim Raymond, will you take a report of a felony knowing wanted disregard? Your prosecutor in your own county committed felonies. But that would make you culpable because the felony was the collusion with you to arrest me for the February arrest where you assaulted my wife. See, because you can't be the complainant in disorderly conduct. You're a civil servant. And then you made the judge up above a witness by writing them into the report, and then had them judge me for 3 years and not let me transfer and have my disability treated as though I was mentally ill instead of giving me a basic accommodation, which the 33rd rule of the court says you must accommodate a disability. You must, whether it's a wheelchair, a translation issue, or it even talks about a brain injury in that accommodation. And so in 2017, Yakima County was made example of by the Attorney General, and then the Attorney General went around to every single county, there's documents of this, every county in the state, and made example, said, we won't have to make an example of you, will we? And every county signed a document that said, no, no, no. We would always accommodate disability. These are crimes against humanity. And just a real quick thing on VIA. VIA does not always come. VIA drivers cancel constantly. It is not a consistent,
All right, thank you.
reliable
Caller,
ride.
your
And that's
3
from somebody
minutes
with
is
a
up. Thank
disability.
you.
That's from somebody with a disability.
Anyone else for public comment? Hearing none, moving on. Is there a need for executive session today?
Chair, yes, there is for 10 minutes, and Daniel Stovern, he has that RCW.
Chair, if we could go into executive session under RCW 4230-110, subsection I, potential future litigation.
And who do you want present for the executive session?
If we can have our Public Works Director, Mr. Gonzalez, of course, you gentlemen, and legal. We may want Commander Connor potentially as well. Let's start with 15.
Oh, you want to go 15? Okay.
All right, so at this point, we'll go into executive session for 15 minutes under the RCW code stated by Mr. Stover.
We're all.
We've come out of executive session with no decisions being made. Is there any other business for the good of the county?
No, Chair, we were through with business. Thank you.
All right, hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.